In today's common society, a calendar date begins and ends at midnight. A January through December calendar where the calendar dates shift at midnight. It doesn't take much study to find that the calendar of the scriptures does not operate this same way. I've made some videos lately regarding the calendar of Yahuwah, and moving forward, I intend on compiling them in a playlist. You can find it on my channel now under calendar related. We are nearing a new scriptural year, and over the years, I have found that the more intentional preparation I make before those times come upon me, the less regret I have about what I could have done to make them more special. These times are special. They are Kadash, set apart. Two chapters that serve as the greatest hits of Yahuwah's days are Leviticus 23 and Deuteronomy 16. They aren't the only ones that give information on them, but they are great go-to places for getting acquainted with Yahuwah's set-apart appointments. I made some videos regarding how to determine a scriptural month in our current time. Another bit of necessary information is figuring out what a scriptural day is. Because if you don't know, I must tell you, it is not observed midnight to midnight, like the current mainstream calendar of the world. So that begs the question, when is it? For me and my house, we start at the beginning. Bereshith, Genesis, chapter 1, verse 5. And Elohim called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there came to be evening, and there came to be morning, one day. Bereshith, Genesis 1:8. And Elohim called the expanse heavens, and there came to be evening, and there came to be morning, the second day. Bereshith 1:13. And there came to be evening, and there came to be morning, the third day. Bereshith 1:19. And there came to be evening, and there came to be morning, the fourth day. Bereshith 1:23. And there came to be evening, and there came to be morning, the fifth day. Bereshith 1:31. And Elohim saw all that he had made, and see, it was very good. Tub ma'at. And there came to be evening, and there came to be morning, the sixth day. Do you notice what all these verses have in common? Before the name of a day, or Yom in modern Hebrew, Yom with an ancient dialect, we have a recurring phrase. In Hebrew, it looks like this. To help make some sense of this, we can see this phrase used in a really profound way in Bereshith or Genesis chapter 1, verse 3. Uya amar Elohim, Yahi aur, Uyahi aur. And Elohim said, let light come to be, and light came to be. Back to the repeated phrase for the Yumim, or days of creation. Uyahi Arab, Uyahi Bakar, Yum. We have an intentionally repeated pattern. We have Arab, or evening, when the sky is dark, and also Bakar, when the sky is bright. And then we have Yum, followed by the ordinal number and then the name of the day. Achad, Shani, Shalishi, Rabi'ai, Chamishi, Hashashi. There are some in our time that say that because day is used in our translations, that these verses are strictly identifying the daylight portion. The trouble with that is that the word Arab is being ignored. From the beginning, a scriptural Yom, a full calendar date, comprises of both the dark part of a day and the bright. Similar to the English word day, context is needed to understand if a calendar date is being talked about or merely the bright daylight portion of a day. It works the same way in Hebrew. It is a modern day doctrine that a scriptural calendar date refers to the daylight portion only, but this is not supported by even historical evidence from the times of Yahusha's resurrection campaign up to now. Here are some examples of the word Yom, or day, identifying a portion of time that indeed includes darkness. Shamuth, or Exodus, chapter 12, verses 12 through 14. And I shall pass through the land of Matzrim on that night, and shall strike all the firstborn in the land of Matzrim, or Egypt, both man and beast. And on all the mighty ones of Matzrim I shall execute judgment. I am Yahuwah. And the blood shall be a sign for you on the houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I shall pass over you, and let the plague not come on you to destroy you when I strike the land of Matzrim. And this day shall become to you a remembrance, and you shall celebrate it as a festival to Yahuwah throughout your generations. Celebrate it as a festival, an everlasting law. Wait, are we remembering the night or the day? This makes sense when we consider how a full day on Yahuwah's calendar includes the dark portion of a week. Leviticus Uyakra chapter 8 verse 35. And stay at the door of the tent of appointment day and night for 7 days. And you shall guard the duty of Yahuwah and not die, for so I have been commanded. Uyakra, Leviticus chapter 23, starting at verse 27. On the 10th day of this 7th month is Yom HaKafrim. It shall be a set-apart gathering for you, and you shall afflict your beings, and shall bring an offering made by fire to Yahuwah. And you do no work on that same Yom, for it is Yom Kafrim, to make atonement for you before Yahuwah your Elohim. For any being who is not afflicted on that same day, he shall be cut off from his people. And any being who does any work on that same day, that being I shall destroy from the midst of his people. You do no work, a law forever throughout your generations in all your dwellings. It is a Shabbat of rest to you, and you shall afflict your beings. On the 9th day of the new month at evening, from evening to evening, you observe your Shabbat. Take note of verse 27. 10th day, 7th month. A calendar date, and when it is being explicitly described, it includes Arab, evening. 1 Samuel chapter 25 verse 16. They were a wall to us both by night and day, all the days we were with them tending the sheep. So here, contextual understanding of a day, discerning between daylight and a calendar day, is needed, but the pattern persists. A calendar date includes a dark portion. Hadassah, chapter 4, verse 16. Go, gather all the Yahudim who are present in Shushan, and fast for me, and do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I too, and my young women, shall fast in the same way. Then I shall go to the sovereign, which is against the law, and if I shall perish, I shall perish. Zechariah chapter 14, verse 7. And it shall be one day, which is known to Yahuwah, neither day nor night, but at evening time there shall be light. Okay, I love this verse because it makes clear that day does not only mean the daylight time in all cases of its use. We learn more about Yahuwah's definition of a day with such witnesses. We even get some insight on how there is some distinction between night and evening as well. Shamuth or Exodus, chapter 12, verses 18 and 19. In the first month, on the 14th day of the new month, in the evening, you shall eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the new month in the evening. For 7 days, no leaven is to be found in your houses. For if anyone eats what is leavened, that same being shall be cut off from the congregation of Yasharal, whether sojourner or native of the land. When looking at these couple of verses, is Yahuwah saying leaven can be in the houses at night, but just not the day portions, or are we missing something? These 7 witnesses, along with what is mentioned in Bereshit chapter 1, should make it clear that when we see day in Scripture, it is not always only talking about daylight, as in the part of the day where the sun is shining above the horizon. When it comes to appointed times, muadim, the set-apart appointments of Yahuwah, we could be missing entire relevant portions of his appointments by excluding the evenings and nights of his calendar. This includes Yahuwah's 7th day, Shabbat. What better person to learn about Shabbat than from Yahusha, the master of the Shabbat? See Matthew 12, verse 8, Marcos 2, verse 28, Lucas chapter 6, verse 5. And he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, and according to his practice, he went into the congregation on the Shabbat day, and stood up to read. But he, passing through the midst of them, went away, and he came down to Capharnaum, a city of Galilee, and was teaching them on the Shabbathun. And he said to them, Is it right to do good on the Shabbat, or to do evil, to save life, or to kill? But they remained silent. And having looked around on them with displeasure, being grieved at the hardness of their hearts, he said to the man, Stretch out your hand. And he stretched it out, and his hand was restored as healthy as the other. Why would Yahusha acknowledge the Shabbat in these ways if the people were observing it incorrectly? The answer is, Yahusha guarded the same Shabbat because it was correct. Then the master answered him and said, Hypocrite, does not each one of you on the Shabbat loosen his ox or his donkey from the stall and lead it away to water it? And this one, being a daughter of Abraham, whom Shaitan has bound, look, for 18 years, should she not be loosened from this bond on the Shabbat? What Shabbat was being observed at this time that was also acknowledged by the master of the Shabbat? Not one that was midnight to midnight, not one that was the daylight only, but one that was from Arab to Arab, evening to evening. Let's review Marcos chapter 1. Verse 21 for time context, but you can look at the whole chapter, of course, for your own review. And they went into Capharnaum, and immediately, on the Shabbat, he went into the congregation and taught. Jumping down to verse 32. And when evening came, when the sun had set, they brought to him all who were sick and those who were demon-possessed. So let's think about this. Why? Because of the man-made law of not healing on Shabbat. Yahusha had no issue breaking their tradition, but tradition was strong on everyone else. But more importantly, note the time. Okay, here's another witness, same account. Lucas chapter 4, verse 31 for context of the time. And he came down to Capharnaum, a city of Galilee, and was teaching them on the Shabbathun, on the Sabbaths. And then later on, at verse 40, but feel free to review everything in between for your own study. And when the sun was setting, all who had any who were sick with various diseases brought them to him, and he laid his hands on each one of them and healed them. Marcos chapter 15, verses 42 to 44. And when evening had come, because it was the preparation day, that is, the day before the Shabbat, Yehusaph of Ramathim, a prominent council member who was himself waiting for the reign of Alhim, came, boldly went into Pilate, and asked for the body of Yahusha. But Pilate wondered whether he was already dead, so summoning the captain, he asked him if he was already dead. So I bring this up just identifying Shabbat's start as recorded in the scriptures. Same account, just different witness. Lucas chapter 23, verses 54 to 56. And it was preparation day, and the Shabbat was approaching. And the women who had come with him from Galilee followed after, and saw the tomb and how his body was laid. And having returned, they prepared spices and perfumes, and they rested on the Shabbat according to the command. Here's another passage for review. Nehemiah chapter 13, starting at verse 19. And it came to be, when the gates of Jerusalem were shaded before the Shabbat, that I commanded the doors to be shut, and commanded that they should not be opened till after the Shabbat. And I stationed some of my servants at the gates, so that no burdens will be brought in on the Shabbat day. And the merchants and sellers of all kinds of wares spent the night outside Jerusalem once or twice, and I warned them, and said to them, Why do you spend the night around the wall? If you do so again, I lay hands on you. From that time on, they came no more on the Shabbat. And I commanded the Leviim that they should cleanse themselves, and they should come, guarding the gates, to set apart the Shabbat day. Remember me, O my Alhim, concerning this also, and pardon me according to the greatness of your kindness. Yechazakal or Ezekiel, chapter 46, verses 1 and 2. Thus said the Master Yahuwah, the gate of the inner courtyard facing east is shut the 6 days of work, but on the Shabbat it is opened, and on the day of the new month it is opened. And the prince shall enter by way of the porch of that gate from the outside, and he shall stand by the post. And the priest shall prepare his ascending offering and his peace offerings. And he shall bow himself at the threshold of the gate, and shall go out, but the gate is not shut until evening. Why evening? Because it is when a scriptural day ends. Dabarim or Deuteronomy, chapter 23, verses 9 through 11. When the camp goes out against your enemies, then you shall guard yourself from every evil matter. When there is any man among you who is not clean because of an emission in the night, then he shall go outside the camp. Let him not come into the midst of the camp. And it shall be, at the approach of evening, that he bathes with water, and when the sun sets, let him come into the midst of the camp. So why would he then be clean at that time? Because a new yom, a new day, has started. Daniel, chapter 8, verse 14. And he said to me, for 2,300 nights, then that which is set apart shall be made right. This verse is pretty interesting. When you look at the source text, instead of lila, which is typically used for night, we see arab bakar, a compound word, and the translators convey that as nights. But is it nights, really? Anyhow, here are some witnesses showing the distinction between the secular day as defined by today's society versus what is seen in Scripture to be defined as a day. May this aid the body of Yahusha as we are nearing a new scriptural year. Yahuwah be with you. Yahuwah Amkam.